In this video, I will demonstrate the three measuring tools that artists used when drawing from observation. Let's begin by talking about the proportion measuring tool. Let's say I needed to draw these 5 lines in the correct proportion in relationship to each. To use the proportion measuring tool, you need to hold your arm out straight, hold your pencil with your thumb and your index finger. You want to make sure that your pencil is perfectly vertical. Never lean either forward or backward when using the proportion measuring tool. You're going to close the eye on the side that you're holding the pencil, and then you're going to slide your thumb up and down like this to take your measurement. It's really important to have your arm perfectly locked because if it's bent, a little bit of variation in the length of your arm is going to throw off your measurement. So once again, you're going to hold your arm perfectly straight, hold your pencil perfectly vertical, straight up and down, and then you're going to slide your thumb up and down to take your measurement. That's the proportion measuring tool. I'm going to move my pencil over to line A, align the tip of my pencil with the top of the line, and then slide my thumb back and forth until it lines up with the bottom. So once again, the top of the pencil lines up with the top of line A, and then I'm going to slide my thumbnail back and forth until it lines up with the bottom of line A. I've just taken a measurement of line A. Now I'm going to see how many times line A fits into line B. I'm going to move my arm over so that my thumbnail lines up with line B, and then I'm going to look up to see where the tip of my pencil is. You want to remember that spot. Once you have that spot remembered, you're going to move your arm up one more time so that your thumbnail is exactly where the tip of your pencil used to be. Now, look at where the tip of the pencil is now. Do you see that it's at the top of the line? What does that tell us about line B? It tells us that line B is twice the length of line A. So if I line up my pencil with line A, slide my thumb up and down until it lines up with the bottom, line A fits once, twice into line B. How do we use this information? Well, we're going to sketch in line A. Here's line A. And then we're going to start sketching in line B. We know that it's going to be longer than line A. But to get its exact height, we're going to use our hand calipers. We're going to take a measurement of line A from the bottom to the top. Then we're going to carry that measurement over to line B. My thumbnail is going to line up here. And then I'm going to mark off where my fingernail is. That's going to be 1 increment. Then I'm going to move my arm up again and mark off the 2nd increment. Now I can put in a slightly darker line. And now we've drawn a line B that's exactly twice the length of line A. Now let's get a measurement of line C. We're going to start off with line A again. So I'm going to line up my pencil with the top of line A. My thumbnail is going to line up with the bottom of line A. Then I'm going to move my pencil over to line C. My thumbnail lines up with the bottom. Then I look up, see where the tip of the pencil is, remember that spot. Move my arm up so my thumbnail is where the tip of the pencil used to be. Remember the spot again. Where is the tip of my pencil? Right about here. Then I'm going to move my arm up, and then I notice that the tip of my pencil lines up with the very top of line C. So what does this tell us about line C? That it is 3 times the height of line A. So if I measure line A again, it fits once, twice, exactly 3 times line C. Now let's sketch in line C. We're going to sketch it in. We know it's going to be a little bit longer than line B. And then we're going to use our hand calipers once again to measure off line A. Take your hand calipers, mark off 1 increment, move your arm up again, your 2nd increment, and your 3rd increment, which is going to be slightly off my screen. There it is. All right, now that we've got the correct length, you can put in a slightly darker line. And now we have line C sketched in. Line C should be 3 times the height of line A. With line D, we have an additional complication. So let's start off with line A. I'm going to take a measurement, move my pencil over to line D. look up and see where the tip of the pencil is. That's 1. Move it up again. That's 2. And then you'll notice that on the third increment, the tip of my pencil is hovering above line D. When you have that situation, I need to take a look at the distance from my thumbnail to the tip of the pencil and think about where the top of the line runs along that length. You'll notice that the top of line D runs through the middle of the length from my thumbnail to the very tip of my pencil. So what that tells us is that this increment is half the length of line A. So you're dealing with fractions. Sometimes you'll see something like this. This is going to be about 3/4. Sometimes you're going to see something like this, which is about, let's say, 1/4. You have to think about the fraction. In this case, this line runs about halfway through. That means that line D is 1, 2, 2.5 times the length of line A. Again, can you see how the top of line D runs through the middle of this distance? That tells us that it's half. Now let's sketch in line D. Notice that at the beginning, before I know the exact length of line D, I'm working very, very light. Now let's use our hand calipers. Here's the first increment. Here's the second increment. And now we know that line D is 2.5 times the length of line A. So let's move our arm up again. This is 3. This is about a half, approximately. Now that we know the exact length of line D, we can put in a slightly darker line. There's line D. With line E, we have an additional complication in that line E is shorter than line A. When you're using the proportion measuring tool, it's always easier to measure the smaller increment into the larger increment. So in this case, to figure out how long line E is, I'm going to take a measurement of line E so that my thumbnail lines up at the bottom of line E, tip of my pencil lines up at the top, and now I'm going to see how many times line E fits into line A. Once. Now I'm going to move my thumbnail so that the tip of my pencil is exactly at the top of line A. So what does it say about line E? It fits 2 times into line A, which means that it is exactly half. Last and least, let's put in line E. We're going to sketch it in. And now we know that line E is about half the distance of line A. So here's the full distance of line A. This is about a half. Let's carry it over to line E, mark off the increment, and sketch in line E. The proportion measuring tool is also very useful when drawing rectangles. In this case, we're going to start off with the shorter increment, which is the width of the rectangle, and see how many times the width fits into the height of the rectangle to get its proportion. Since we're measuring the width first, instead of holding my pencil vertical, I'm going to hold it horizontally. The tip of my pencil is going to line up with the left side of my rectangle, and then I'm going to slide my thumbnail back and forth until it lines up with the right side of the rectangle. Now that I've measured the width of the rectangle, I'm going to see how many times it fits into the height by rotating my pencil, moving my arm down so that my thumbnail lines up with the bottom of the rectangle, either on the left side or the right side. It really doesn't matter. Now I'm going to look up and see where the tip of my pencil lines up against the right side. Remember where the tip of the pencil is. Now you're going to move your arm up so that your thumbnail is where the tip of the pencil used to be. Notice that the tip of my pencil now is perfectly lined up with the top of the rectangle. That tells us that the width of the rectangle fits exactly twice into the height of the rectangle. Let's start by sketching out the width of our rectangle. Let's say our rectangle is going to be this wide. By the way, you can make this distance as long or short as you want. If you want to draw a little rectangle, draw something like this. If you want to make the rectangle longer, draw it longer. The most important thing is that it has the correct proportion. So we know in this case the height of the rectangle is twice the width. So we're going to use our hand calipers again. We can do this, or we can use another pencil and do this. In this case, I'm just going to use my hand calipers. Okay, so here is the width of my rectangle. Now we're going to take it and carry it up once and twice and sketch in the top of our rectangle. And now we can extend vertical lines going up and draw a rectangle that is exactly twice as long as the width. Let's do the same thing for rectangle B. Let's take a measurement of the width. Tip of my pencil goes to one side, thumbnail goes to the other side. Now I'm going to rotate my hand perfectly vertical. Move my arm down so it lines up with the bottom of the rectangle. Look at where the tip of the pencil is, remember that spot, and then move your arm up so your thumbnail is where the tip of the pencil used to be. Look up again, where is the tip of the pencil? Remember that spot. Move your arm up again. Notice that the tip of my pencil lines up perfectly with the very top of the rectangle, which tells us that the width of the rectangle fits exactly 1, 2, 3 times into rectangle. Let's draw our second rectangle. You want to make sure that the width of our rectangles is exactly the same. So I'm going to sketch in the width and then use my hand calipers to measure out the same width. And now we know that the second rectangle is 3 times the width. So let's use our hand calipers. Here's 1, here's 2, and here's 3. Now we're going to sketch in vertical lines. And draw our second rectangle. Let's do the same thing with rectangle C. Let's take a measurement of the width. Rotate your pencil. Move your arm down so your thumbnail is at the bottom of the rectangle. Look at where the tip of the pencil is. Move your arm up so your thumbnail is there. That's one length. Look at where the tip of the pencil is. Move your arm up so your thumbnail is there. Okay, so now the tip of the pencil is hovering well above the top of my rectangle. Let's take a look at the length from my thumbnail to the top of the pencil. Notice that the top of my rectangle runs to about 1/3 that length. So right about here, like this. So it looks like it's about 1/3. That tells us that the width fits once, twice, 2 1/3 times into the height. Now let's draw our third rectangle. Let's make sure that we have the same width. And we know that this rectangle is 2 1/3 times the width. So let's use our hand calipers. Here's 1, here's 2, this is 3, this is about half, this is about 1/3. Here's the top of our rectangle. And now we can sketch in the sides. The proportion measuring tool is usually the first step to draw anything, no matter how complicated. So as an example, if I wanted to do a drawing of this vase, I would use my proportion measuring tool to measure the width of the vase at its widest part and see how many times the width fits into the height. That concludes the demonstration of the proportion measuring tool. The next step is for you to practice it over and over again until you're able to use it accurately. I'm going to give you a worksheet to work from. You have two options. If you're working from a desktop, put it up on your screen, get a few feet from it, and use the image to draw from. Or if you're working from a phone, I recommend that you print the image on the largest piece of paper possible, paste it on a wall, get a few feet distance from it, and draw from it that way. It's really, really important that all of you become really proficient in using this tool because it's used at the beginner level, of course, but also at the very most advanced levels, such as figure drawing or drawing landscape. So very important that all of you become proficient at using the proportion measuring tool.